Good afternoon, Sir Chan. This is my philosophical research paper, Midterms, a book that foretells us a story about one of the 30 tyrants Plato's uncle, Charmides, Charmides, is back home after a well-fought battle in the Peloponnesian War against the Athens. Temperance or sovereignty is the key virtue in this incredible book. An apprehension into the virtue that enables us to self-restraint is the most difficult times. Understanding temperance as a virtue. Next on. Temperance is knowing thyself through self-knowledge. Therefore, only the temperate man himself will know himself. Third, virtue that cannot be taught but can be acquired through the progressions in life to fulfill suffering. In knowing temperance, one must be able to understand themselves through the four notions. The path to temperance or sovereignty is not an easy one, but easiness is not an easy one, since understanding oneself is the most difficult things to do. Yet to achieve this is through self-mindedness or by patience. Alan Pitranik, 2016, stated that there are really four notions that are deeply connected with one another, and in order to understand sovereignty, we need to get a proper hold on them and their relationship. These four notions are knowledge of ignorance, self-knowledge, knowledge of good, and knowledge of the whole. They are the four notions into temperance. Knowledge of ignorance, knowledge of self-knowledge, knowledge of the good, and knowledge of the whole. Next. Man has the capability to unlock temperance. By doing so, he may know what he knows and what he does not know. Self himself is the answer to all his questions and will determine what he is or what he is not. Gregory Kirk, 2016, asserted that we naturally cultivate the forces within our soul. We cannot remain ignorant of those forces. The more ignorant we are to those forces, the more we are beholden to them. They are aliens to us. They are also us. Ultimately, for each of us, our character, for better or for worse, is how we cultivate our relationship with these forces. While cultivating the soul, we must also understand that we must cultivate the forces to develop our characteristic for better or for worse. Next, as we move on with our lives, grow up in a different environments, as we are able to acquire different types of virtue, yet there is a virtue that hides within ourselves and called temperance or sovereignty, and is waiting for us to unlock it through the four notions found in the book of Charmides. Anne Marie, 2013, stated that Socrates' sovereignty emphasizes his emotional state and his response to his emotions. Socrates does not exhibit sophrosune is simply as a virtue or recent self-control that helps him strengthen his intellectual pursuit of good. Socrates models sophrosune, a way of life that involves ongoing self-examination, emotional stress, and sustained physiological inquiry. Within a communal context, Socrates states that the sophrosune is not only a virtue that reasons with self-control, but is a way of life that includes self-examinations, emotional stress, and sustained philosophical inquiry. Page 2. Temperance can be understood by a lot of ways. Does it really require the four notions to understand what temperance is? In the book of Charmides, it only talks about self-knowledge, whereas the others cannot be found in the original book, but only in the articles given by these authors. Alan Pinkanik, 2016, observes that there are really four notions that are deeply connected with one another, and in order to understand sophism, we need to get a hold of the proper and the relationships. While Paul Woodruff, 2018, concludes that he concludes that this virtue that produces self-control, the ability to resist temptation, to act violently in satisfactions of desire, the temptation that, in Plato's schemes of things, characteristically leads to tyrants to disaster. Next, the main theme of the dialogues in the knowledge of virtue. Both of the author talks about temperance, but is expressed throughout different kinds of ways. Next, it is in knowing ignorance what temperance is. You cannot know thyself without understanding what ignorance is. Self-knowledge begins with knowing ignorance. Therefore, without understanding of ignorance, temperance would not be achieved in our human virtues. Gregory Kirk, 2016, observed that it is natural cultivated with forces with our soul. We cannot remain ignorant for those forces. The more ignorant we are to those forces, the more we are beholden to them. Beholden to them, they are aliens to us, and they are also us, as stated last time, the previous statement. While Justin C. Clark, 2018, concludes that the temperance is knowledge of good and bad. When this knowledge is applied specifically to certain operations of the soul, one talks about the value of these forces within our soul, while one talks about how it specifically operates towards our soul. Virtues are hidden within ourselves, yet it is not a progress, it is already within ourselves since the day we were born. The moment you realize that having all of this virtue all along, yet some refuse to understand or give meaning to this, or not understand what ignorance is, for they are ignorant for not understanding ignorance. Anne-Marie Schultz, 2013, observes that Socrates suffers soon, emphasizes his emotional state, as I have said earlier, while Gerald A. Press, 2018, concludes that Charmides is best translated as moderation. It can be understood not among one of the moral virtues as normally assumed, but as the foundation of all other virtues or excellence. The first author gives out the analysis of Socrates into Charmides. I'm sorry for that. Whereas the second author gives out his own insights about what kind of virtue or temperance or suffering is in his or her own way. That is all. Thank you.